Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the Iranian attack on Israel is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's so great to be with you again. I enjoy all the contacts I get from my cohorts that join me on this podcast. You are terrific. I love you all, and I appreciate your input, even though often it's critical of me or my views. But it's always, just as I claim to be the voice of wisdom, I get a lot of wisdom from you all, and I appreciate that. So I don't mind criticism as long as it's smart criticism. We don't have to agree with each other. We can learn from each other. I could change my views sometimes, be influenced, but even if I don't change my views, I admire the rationale and the logic of some of your positions, and so I can admire you all. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. God bless you. You're my favorite people in the whole world. And I'm talking about favorite people. I'm delighted to have I would call him Mr. Carter back, Len Carter back, because he makes the program really interesting. He has lots of wisdom, and he shares it with us, and that makes me really pleased that he's willing to give me and you all his time. He's a very successful banker, investment banker. He was a graduate, top of his class at Harvard Business School, same as the school I attended. Before that, he was a leading scholar at Cornell, where he was a graduate engineer. And then he was at another great school, all great schools, because Cornell is one of the top Ivy League schools. And then he went to Stanford, which, like Harvard, excels. Stanford, Harvard, and MIT are probably the most, Princeton maybe as well, are the most admired, recognized, appreciated, high-rated university in the whole United States, or maybe in the whole universe, maybe along with Oxford and I was going to say oxygen, Oxford and Cambridge in Britain, and I don't know the ones in China or others, but those are the greatest schools. So I'm delighted to have him on, and before I get into the nitty-gritty of the current events and the current headaches that we're going to talk about, the world situation, the political situation, I want to, because I care about you, I want to help you be happier. That's the reason I wrote this book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. The subtitle on the bottom is How to Be Happy No Matter What. And so I like to start the program with giving you some suggestions about how to be happier. I try not to do as long a monologue as I do on the subject sometimes. But I want to suggest, in addition to getting a copy of the book, which is the fastest and the best way of adding to your happiness, the surest way, and I get that from all the people who call me and write to me and tell me how great it's changed their lives, how much it's improved their happiness and their contentment, and reduced their aggravation and depression, the periods of depression. So if you have the money and can afford it, I suggest you get a copy, and I'm so sure you'll not only like it, but love it. It's 365 pages, one page for every day of the year. It has humor, it has wisdom on how to be happy, it has examples and so forth. So, and I offer the best deal of any purchase you'll ever make, because on TV and many advertisements, they say if you're not happy with it, you don't even have to send back the bottles, or the packaging will return your purchase price as long as you send us your purchase slip. So I'll give you the best deal ever. If you don't like it, if you're not happy with it, with this book, I'll give you send me your purchase price. You don't have to send back the book. I'll reward you, even though I feel badly. I'd send you double your purchase price. So you come out ahead both ways. You get to keep the book, you get to enjoy your book and the book. And if you would choose not to be truthful to me, but want to make a minor killing, just send me the purchase slip and you'll get double your money back. So I don't know how you can have a better guarantee than that. So get it, because I love you and I want you to have a more enjoyable, happier life, less worrisome, less burdensome, in so many ways, just happier. And so the ideas I would like to offer this week is, since God made us in his image and put us on this earth, and there's no real good reason we've ever found what his motive was for doing that, but we should act like we believe God does and do things that make the world a better place, that make other people happier. So we should smile at other people. We should do whatever we can to improve their life, to benefit them, to give them love, to volunteer for groups that need help, or to send contributions that people desperately people who are in desperation would be so grateful, and it would change their lives, at least, if not permanently, at least temporarily. The best thing you could do in Judaism, the highest form of charity, is helping a man to get a job, or giving him a job. As the saying goes, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for one day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So I'm not suggesting that you'll become fishermen, but I'm suggesting that giving of yourself is immensely rewarding. You'll try it, you'll find it so. Visit somebody at a hospital, visit a friend that's going through troubles, and give them a pep talk and help them to feel better. The best money I ever spent in my life, I must tell you, and I've given away millions to charity. That's the best money I ever spent. Maybe it matches the money I spent on my own family, because charity begins at home. You should take care of your family, and that's another thing you should do. You should express your love every day to your children, to your wife, to your husband, to somebody who you care about. You're giving something away that costs you nothing, but makes other people happy. So do that. I promise you, it'll make you happier. It'll cause you to have a smile on your face. You'll feel better. And except when you give cash contributions or material things, it doesn't cost anything. To do nice things for others, to help lift their spirit, that's the greatest mitzvah, the greatest do good. So that's my suggestion for you this week. Have a great week every day of your life. A great week always, and every day of your life should be better than the day before. More uplifting, more rewarding, happier. And it's up to you. You're the boss. You're in control of your own mind. And attitude is really the secret. Attitude and gratitude. If you have gratitude and you appreciate the blessings that you were given life in this world, which is the greatest blessing. The one thing you can't get more of, disappointedly and depressingly, is more time. You could lose all your money and get even more back. You could lose anything. Maybe you can't lose your closest soulmate, but it's somewhat maybe not totally replaceable, but you can fill that emptiness somewhat. So take my advice. Gratitude. Count your blessings every day. Write them down even. And if you look at what you wrote down, that'll make you happy. Anyway, enough of me. Let me introduce again my fabulous guest, Len Carter, and he'll launch our discussion of the issues of the week.
So, yes, thank you, Morty. A lot's going on. A lot has happened in a week. So we saw the counterattack from Iran over the weekend for the alleged attack by Israel on their top military leaders in Syria.
Yeah.
Well, Israel, I don't think ever admitted doing it, but they didn't not admit doing it, so there's just that presumption there. Iran, before the first drone missile or
Israel
cruise
killed,
missile,
I think 2 generals and some other important Iranians next to the
right. It was a building next to the consulate. It wasn't the consulate.
I said next.
But the consulate was destroyed in the.
Was it?
Yeah, so they were targeting the building next to it, but the consulate was destroyed. So, it was a precision operation in that regard, but there was that fallout. Iran says that's sovereign territory, so we will retaliate. But interestingly, before the first drone missile or cruise missile was even in close to Israeli airspace, Iran said, we're done. So, the first question comes to mind, were they intentionally, was this?
I wish they were done.
With their retaliation. Yeah. So do you think that, because there's some talk, some people think that the attack, was planned to limit casualties but maximize spectacle. So Iran obviously had to respond in some way because they don't want to look weak in their own people and to the world. But they know if they overdo it, that's going to be really bad. So do you think that there was any intentional planning of that, where it was, not, done in a way to, plus they did give notice in a sense, right? They told the world, we're going to do this. They gave the US and Israel time to, prepare in some way. We sent firepower over to the Mediterranean and the Gulf in anticipation that this was going to happen. They use drones that go at 100 miles an hour. Those are not exactly the kinds of things that are hard to knock out of the sky. Was this a coincidence? Or intentional, I should say. Was it intentional?
Since as an act of war, or a kind of act of retaliation for what punishment for what they claim, as you say, Israel hasn't made the claim that they did it or even confessed they did it, but they probably did do it. So I believe that they were looking, that the objective was to punish Israel and to have those. It's hard to believe that they could even deliberately avoid sending those devastating weapons over Israel or even over Jordan, and avoiding surgically not killing anybody. So since it was such a failure in terms of their objective and goals to do damage to Israel, physical damage, killing Jews and Israelis. So now they took the upbeat, which is brilliant, and said, if we really wanted to hurt Israel and the Jews, we would have killed them. We avoided, as it turns out, and as you can see, we did not kill anybody. I think they did kill one
girl.
I think maybe one.
One Bedouin, I think, was
she
was doing outside at 1 a.m, looking at the sky when shrapnel came down. I don't know, but
one Arab girl.
But that's still nonetheless there was one injury.
Girl was killed. So, but they're taking a lemon and making it into a lemonade, because look how fair we are. And now they're saying, well, we're done, so there shouldn't be any more retaliation, because they're really worried about Israel coming after them on their own homeland, because they went from their own homeland, from Iran, to attack Israel. And it's literally a miracle that Israel, along with the help of the United States and Great Britain, and even Jordan and France, was able to repel all those 350, what do they call them?
Drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles.
350, all of which are devastating if they hit the targets. And they turned that into a lemonade by saying, look, we didn't look to hurt Israel or the Jewish people or our enemy, but next time we will. And so they say we're done because they're very concerned about getting hit back.
But for that same reason, that's why I wonder if that it was an intentional light, or an intentional, not an intentional miss, but, just like when in 2020, when we went after Soleimani in Iraq, that head of an Iranian terrorist head, and when Trump was president and he was killed in a missile strike, Iran was screaming up and down, "We're going to retaliate."
He was a major
Terrorist
general
leader. Yes.
or leader of the what's it called, their army.
I don't know if he was a Revolutionary Guard general but he was a big a big guy, and they weren't happy.
Right.
And so we're going to retaliate. What actually happened, because they realized that, one, they have to say we're going to retaliate, and they have to do some sort of make an effort, again, for their own people and their world, saving face in the world. They can't do nothing. But what they wound up doing was just hitting dirt. They wound up...
They can't do nothing, so that means they can do something.
Right.
Because a double negative is a problem.
Right. They can't do nothing.
They can't do anything.
They can't do nothing.
Oh, yeah, they can't do nothing.
Right.
Oh, you're right.
So they have to do something.
Right.
So, but what they did at the time was hit dirt. They bombed a military base in Iraq, a U.S. military base in Iraq, putting lots of craters in the ground. There's some thought that they actually gave notice through Switzerland that this was coming, because they didn't want to retaliate in a way that would cause the U.S. to respond even more harshly than just the one killing Soleimani. So it was an intentional maneuver, and Iran isn't dumb. They know Israel is a much more superior military, and if they ever went head to head, they're going to lose. So that's why I think we'll never know. But there's some sense, a little bit of logic that maybe there was this. But brings the next question to mind, which is, okay, so now that this happened, Israel strikes the consulate, Iran sends the missiles, so it's 1-for-1. But now, the war cabinet in Israel saying we're going to respond further. They don't say yet, at our time and our convenience and our whatever, which is a smart thing to say, because you can, they don't want to say we're not going to do anything. That doesn't look good either.
And also they're urged by the United States that says they won't join in
any offensive maneuvers, right?
And most of the other.
So how do you, and the goal, the term that I keep hearing, that their goal is to reestablish deterrence, because up until now, there has been this kind of deterrence that never before did. Iran was all through shadow war, proxies. They never sent weapons from their own land to Israel. That was truly an unprecedented thing. And now, it raises the stakes, and, from Israel's point of view, it doesn't look like whatever that they've deterred Iran from doing that, because they did. So how do you if you're Israel, how do you reestablish deterrence? So how do you tell them, don't do that again? What do you do to show them not to do that again without sparking a whole another, because of Israel right now, it's like I said, it's like 1-for-1. We did this, you did that. So now if Israel does this, then they're going to want to do this, and then they're going to want to do this, and that's how things get out of control.
Incidentally, the United States and others alerted Israel and were aware of this imminent attack by Iran. You say Iran gave warning, but Iran is always giving warning. It's bluster. They're always saying, They said we're going to bomb it with an atom bomb and so forth. So I don't know if they gave.
Well, I'm talking about in 2020. Back in 2020 when Soleimani was killed through Switzerland. This time, I don't think there was warning.
Oh, I thought you said they gave warning.
Back last time through Switzerland.
So they didn't give warning.
Yeah.
So
except they did something which, again, drones take however 3, 4, 5 hours to get from Iraq to Israel. That's kind of warning because it wasn't. You don't have much element of surprise when you're sending over slow ball. A slow pitch.
But if the United States and Israel didn't develop the what do they call it? The Iron Dome,
right? And then the Ares and the Sling David and that. Yeah, no, they have
Israel actually developed the technology with the help of the United States. The United States funded the research, but it's really a miracle that they could shoot down things that are flying at that speed, and they're small and they're way up in the air, and they knocked out
from hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
A destroyer in the Mediterranean sends out a rocket that blows up a missile long before it even gets into Israeli airspace, like over Syria or Iraq or somewhere way, way out there. Before it even gets close, it's blown up.
Yeah,
there were a lot of I think most of the drones, missiles were destroyed before they even entered Israeli airspace, which means that they were intercepted. The Iron Dome handles just like Israel, but if there's hundreds of miles between Israel and Iraq.
Yeah, Israel.
So they blew them up long before they even got to Israel, which is amazing.
Israel for years has been blowing up the ones that were launched from
Gaza and from Lebanon.
But that wasn't quite the same achievement. It's a lot, because with all of the launches that they did from Gaza, very few people, and more than that, Israel at the border and even well into Israel had people build bomb shelters. It's interesting that Gaza and Hamas, now that the Israelis are there, and Gaza knew that Israel could attack one day, found no bomb shelters for their civilians. So there's an indifference to losing life. As a matter of fact, they even remarkably, surprisingly, unbelievably love when they give their lives for Allah, because there's one top leader of the Hamas who lost 3 sons and 4 grandchildren, and they have a picture of him and his wife. His wife's in bed at the hospital, in a hospital, and they're so proud and so cheering that their kids are with Allah, and they were able to give their lives. So to them, death is a
well, it's a martyrism.
Because it makes them.
It's a martyrism.
What?
It's martyrism.
Martyrism, yeah. So, and Israel's the reverse. Israel operated on a guy who's head of who founded one of the founders. It starts with an S. Of his son is even the most critical of anybody you can hear, and justifiably, of his father and his father's ruthlessness and baseless hatred, and I forget the point I was trying to make, but oh yes. So one of their leaders, I don't know if it was him, or one of the top leaders leading this this harrowing, savage attack on Israel on October 7th of all civilians, people at a concert, and he was wounded with brain damage, and Israel operated on him, helped him recover, and he's back now leading the, because Israel, as I well know, because my grandson wound up and he had an attack, asthma attack, he almost died. It was a miracle. It happened 3 o'clock in the morning, and 2 Jewish doctors were in the lobby talking, schmoozing at 3 o'clock in the morning. And my other grandson, his brother, heard him screaming and banging on the door. So he opened the door and he found him without, almost breathless, without able to breathe. And those 2 doctors were in the lobby and they attended to him right away. And he was brought to, what hospital is that? The biggest hospital in
Hadassah.
Hadassah Hospital. And even my wife and I were at the Dead Sea, part of our vacation. We came running back to Jerusalem, and when we asked about what happened and so forth, the doctors told us they didn't know if they could save him, save his life. Fortunately, they did. He has a family. He's great. But in the next bed, the Israelis were taking care of some young Arab kid that was hurt badly, that was in terrible crisis, and they were taking better care. They were more alert, or at least as alert to attending to that kid as they were to my grandson, who's living in Israel these days. So for Jews, Israel, the Torah says, the Old Testament said, and the commentaries that are extensive say, if you save one life, it's as if you're saving the world. And it doesn't say a Jewish life. So we have the attitude that there are things you can't do on the Sabbath. You can't drive a car. You can't do lots of things. Or even on a regular week, you can't feed your kids or your family pork or bacon, anything from a pig or other prohibited animals. But we have this rule that even if a Christian or a Muslim, you see them in medical trouble on a Sabbath, you're allowed to break any law. You're allowed to drive an ambulance, take them to the hospital, just to save the life. So we have enormous respect for life. And these crazies, they want to die for Allah, you know. If they killed an Israeli, the Palestinian PLO pays, if the perpetrator goes to jail, the PLO pays them or their family and builds homes for the family because they did this wonderful act. So there's just a world of difference between the attitude towards life and the destruction of life, and even the self-destruction of your own people.
So John Bolton, who worked in the Trump administration, he's a kind of a hawk.
Yeah.
He said that Israel's retaliation should be harsh and should include the destruction of any nuclear weapon manufacturing. So we were having a discussion before about what the U.S. should do. So do you think that that's a well-advised response? It doesn't seem like they're going to do that because it's been a few days since the attacks on that Saturday night.
And also the United States, which is their number one backer, discourages them or is critical of them, of Israel. And also most of the UN and the rest of the world is critical of Israel. You wouldn't know that if you listen to the current news and the current journalists and op-eds and TV hosts, you wouldn't know that this war was launched against citizens, women, children, rapes, destruction of young women and more mature women of their vagina and related areas. In the most savage, horrendous attack. And all the criticism is of Israel and what they're doing. In a war, people get killed. The United States in the Second World War killed more Japanese by far than the Japanese killed Americans. So the United States must have been the bad guy. Great Britain killed many more Germans than the Germans killed in London and its environments throughout Great Britain. So you'd think because they killed more civilians that they're the bad guys. In a war, Israel's probably the only country that would have stopped going through Rafah when they knew that the last of their enemy could be wiped out. 3 divisions, I think, are left out of the Hamas armies or militia, whatever you call them. And it's critically important for Israel to get rid of that potential future. And they say we'll do it again and again and again. So once and for all, you have to, if you're Israel, you can't tolerate what they've tolerated for years, all these missiles coming over every day, every night. You have to end it. So,
but I don't think
if it were me with all the criticism and I were running it, I would heartbreakingly attack that space instantly when they approached it and get rid of the enemy with the sad, frightful loss of the civilians. And Israel stopped, and now they're trying to move those civilians away from that area, from Rafah's area, and hold off attacking. And Kamala, our Vice President Kamala Harris, gave a talk. Oh my God, Israel has to stop because there's 1,300,000 people in and around Rafah, and if they attack it, it would be a terrible humanitarian disaster. So Israel should stop. Instead of saying that they're at the edge, right next to Egypt, at the border of Egypt. Egypt has a bigger fence up against the Palestinians or the Hamas group coming across into Egypt than Israel has. Israel has Hamas people coming all the time to work, and PLO people, Palestinians who voted after Israel gave Gaza without a fight, without anything, just to create further peace, gave Gaza to the PLO, to the Palestinians. The Palestinians voted overwhelmingly for Hamas, and even till this very moment,
most of them still support Hamas.
Until this very, not only support, still support, but are enthusiastically in favor of what Hamas did to civilians and took hostages, all civilians, and keeps them, won't return hostages, women and children and babies. It's just outrageous.
Although when you think about,
so what does Kamala? Why doesn't she insist that Egypt open its borders and at least temporarily let those people in to avoid their getting slaughtered or killed or maimed? And also, why doesn't Jordan let them in, or Lebanon, just temporarily? Not one of those Arab neighbors, Arab countries, has allowed any Palestinians into their countries in all these years. In the 75 years since Israel was established by the UN. Lebanon took them in, but keeps them in a segregated camp.
I think that's a good point, and I think Israel doesn't do a good job marketing that point. You know, Netanyahu, every time he's in a press conference being criticized for what he's doing, he should say that.
Yeah.
Why don't they? We have an answer. How about some of these other countries taking some of these refugees? But by not saying that, it makes it easier for people to criticize. It's like
much more. Israel has terrible PR, terrible reporting of its goodness, because people don't know if there's a disaster in any country in the world, Israel's the first one to send help and troops and ambulances and doctors.
Yeah.
They set up in Ukraine right after the war started. They set up a hospital in Kiev. They sent doctors, nurses, ambulances. Nobody realized. Even to Haiti.
If you didn't know that, would you know that?
No, and they don't. They just.
That sounds like sounds like a Yogi Berraism. Yeah, if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know that.
There was a tsunami in Israel, in Asia. I don't remember which country. Israel sent tons of support, food, help, doctors. Haiti, which Israel has no benefit from. It's unlikely they will ever have a benefit in the next 100 years, because it's a destitute country. It's very sad, but they send help. So they do it throughout the world. Nobody knows that, and it's just unbelievable. And and one of the reasons is that the Muslim countries, the Middle East Arab countries and Muslim nations there that earn literally trillions of dollars from oil, spend enormous funds to do PR. They spend tons of money to support Harvard and Cornell and these universities. That's why they're so, and the student groups. So, you know, it's not surprising that they're getting the benefit that they're looking for, these nations, by having all these young people that learn everything from their social networks, which again, these Arab countries is what's the one that out of Qatar, the TV station they have out of Qatar that appears throughout the world.
Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera?
Al Jazeera reports it. Al Jazeera is on social networks, so it's not surprising that that Israel gets.
But just on the issue of the deterrence, I think the one strong message that came out last weekend was that even Iran told the world, including specifically the U.S., when we retaliate against Israel, they told the U.S. don't help, don't get involved, and the U.S. did not listen to that message, nor did the UK, nor did France. And even, as you said, Jordan knocked out a few missiles, drones as well.
But now the U.S. is listening because they say if Israel retaliates against Iran, they won't get involved.
But I think what that says, and it is the first time, I believe, that the U.S. has ever intervened in a defensive assistance way with Israel. And that, I think, is a very powerful message to Iran that says, while we may not offensively join in Israel, we will defend. And so I think Israel is very concerned about about reestablishing this deterrence, but I'm not so sure if they need to have an overt military strike back on Iran based on what happened and what Iran sees, that for all the encouraging and criticism that the world and a lot of nations have put against Israel, at the end of the day, the U.S. was there and would continue to be there. So if you're Iran, I think there is an element of deterrence there, because without having Israel come back again on a hard way. So, who knows? We'll see.
Israel's only asking for weapons to fight off.
Right. So let's talk about
these terrorists and these active enemies.
So let's talk about the weapons.
And the United States has done that for Ukraine.
Yes. So there's been, these funding bills floating around Congress. The other day, the White House said that Biden will not accept a standalone funding bill aid just to Israel, that he wants it to be bundled with the Ukraine
and Taiwan.
So, do you think that's a wise thing to do when there's more solidarity in the Congress for Israel, a funding bill for Israel, than there is a joint funding for all three of those nations? Why bundle them together? Or is there some, wiseness to doing that?
Well, the Republicans, for one, are vehemently against further active support for Ukraine.
Well, some of them are. I mean, the traditional conservative.
The Republican Congress, I'm saying.
Some are. I mean, there are Republicans that are.
They're actively saying we won't vote for it. They're holding up the bill because of that. Otherwise, if they were in favor of it, the bill would pass. They're okay with supporting Israel and maybe Taiwan. I haven't heard their position. Probably Taiwan. But they're against.
Well, there aren't enough. There aren't enough.
And Trump is against. There aren't enough. They're against.
No, there aren't enough Republicans. I mean, look, Nikki Haley's a classic Republican, conservative Republican. She's very much in favor of of supporting Ukraine.
I'm not saying all Republicans.
And I'm saying the same thing as
But I'm
you're
saying-
saying. They don't have enough
But the
to
Congress,
support it.
the Republican members of Congress,
Not enough of this. There's not enough to get a Ukraine bill through. Because there aren't enough Republicans who support it. Some do.
No, they're against it. They're against it.
That's the
They're
same
not.
thing as saying they don't support it. That's just what I said. I said they don't support it. You said they're against it.
Well, it's one thing to pass, to say I decline to vote, and it's another thing to say. So it's much more forceful.
Either way,
To
they
be
don't get it
against-
passed. The result is they
No,
can't pass it.
It could have got passed. For one,
You have to
they won't
support it to
even-
pass
no,
it.
They won't even bring it up. Johnson won't bring it up because of that, and his group said they might even kick him out.
Right.
So they're strongly against
Right.
it, even though it was bipartisan, strongly supported by the Senate and the rest of Congress. Many Republicans did support it, along with Democrats in the Congress. But since they control the Congress now, and he won't bring it up.
The real problem, yes,
No, Johnson
won't bring it up.
because
That's
he
the real
loses.
problem.
So that, which means that they're strongly against it.
Well, there's enough of them who are preventing him from doing it.
Strongly,
Because
there
I
might
think
there might not even
It's
be
the same thing as
they're not-
it's the
it's
same
not-
thing as the border bill. If the border bill were brought to Congress, to the House, it would pass.
Yeah.
Even though there are Republicans against it and there's Republicans for it.
Yeah.
It would have passed. But it was Johnson who won't bring it to a floor vote
because what's his name, Trump,
because Trump says don't do it.
don't do it. Not even though he was in favor of that when he was president, and he's been in favor of that all along. But he says if you pass
And we'll bring the same
it'll
bill
take-
if he becomes president.
It'll take a major issue away from his criticism
Of course.
of Biden, because that's been one of his. That's what helped him win in
So
2016.
why would Biden say that? Why does he say? Why does the White House say we're not going to support a standalone? I mean, why not do it in pieces? If you can get support for an Israel bill, do that. If you can get a support for
is at least as strong for Ukraine, and the only way he could get Ukraine passed is by having it wrapped.
well, apparently not.
What?
Apparently not.
No, not. But if it's got any chance, it's by getting the whole bill passed, because Ukraine alone, the Republicans are against Russia too, but not quite the same way. What's his name? Trump is not in favor of supporting Ukraine.
Not at all.
He says, Russia is doing something that they're allowed to do, that they're even supposed to do. I don't know,
So while we're on the subject of Mr. Trump, he said
I never heard of him.
he said that Iran he had a rally on Saturday night as the missiles were flying toward Israel, and said that Iran never would have attacked Israel if he were president. And his rationale for that, usually the rationale is, they know not to mess with me. But this rationale was that under Trump, in his words, Iran was broke, and when he was president, and now they have lots of money because of Biden policies. And so that's why Iran is flush with cash to do all this military stuff. And that's why back in my day, he says, they couldn't do that because they were broke. You think there's any merit to that?
I think it's not only the cash. I think he would have been tougher on the sanctions, on their selling oil, which helped them generate the cash. And I do think that they'd be more worried about Trump.
I mean, it's certainly true that Trump is a little more unpredictable when it comes to military response. Fire and fury, he said about North Korea. And people, when he first said that, were like, oh my God, he's going to have us in a nuclear war with North Korea. And then in the next breath, we're good friends, my best friend, Kim Jong-un. But that is a strength, when you're a little bit, who knows how the person's going to respond, that factors into your decisions. If you're Iran and you're not quite sure how Trump's going to respond to your actions, maybe you don't do it, because maybe he snaps and then goes crazy.
Also, the Republicans were much more forceful against the deal that Obama made with, I think it was Obama made with Iran, which allowed them to keep working on a nuclear bomb. And when the Republicans came in, they supported Israel's position to end that agreement, because they said, well, it was a good agreement because it would prevent Iran getting a nuclear bomb for maybe 15 years. That was a hope rather than a certainty, because Iran was working on getting the materials to make a bomb and keeping some of the inspectors from getting to all the places where, so the Republicans, so it's not only Trump, but I think it's less likely that they would have, that he could have kept them from, I'm not saying that Trump does great things or isn't dangerous in potentially ending our own democracy. So I'm not supporting him just because he's
and it's not clear. I mean, whatever percent of the GDP, their GDP, Iran spends on military, they still could have done that. Maybe they just wouldn't have money to do something else. But if whatever money they had, it's it's not certain that
it's not only money. It's being in more control, as Israel has requested from the United States, of what they're doing with moving towards nuclear weapons, and they're going to get it. I mean, first of all,
I heard someone say they're surprised they just didn't buy one from North Korea.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
They're going to get it because they're getting enough of the stuff that they need.
But not even
to make it.
Not even make it yourself. Just buy one.
It's not only North Korea. There's so many countries that have it.
Right.
So Pakistan has it.
Right.
North Korea has it. So, they don't hate Iran.
Right.
Russia has it.
You think they would sell them one?
Yeah, help them get it. None of them have the same attitude towards Iran that Israel has. The only ones maybe that are strongly against Iran and somewhat closer to Israel's position are the Sunnis. And Saudi Arabia was close to getting working with Israel, having a relationship, and And the other day, I was surprised and pleased to see that Jordan, which is 60% Palestinian, helped Israel fight off those missiles and what are the other things? Missiles,
Cruise missiles, drones, ballistic missiles.
Missiles
And they had a good way to position it too, so that it wouldn't sound like, that it wouldn't sound like they're turning their backs on their Arab neighbors. They said they're protecting
their own
airspace and their own people. So anytime, any missiles this way or this way, we would have shot them down.
Not only
so
that,
it's
partially American, the king, because his mother was the king before Hussein was married to the daughter of the chief executive of TWA. TWA doesn't exist, so nobody knows what I'm talking about. But of an American airline, and he married her. And this king is the son of that marriage. But so he's more liberal. But even so, they say he's not bragging about it or making a big thing of it in his own country because it's not a popular.
Right, but I thought that was a smart way of addressing it by saying this way he doesn't look like he's actually helping
I was
Israel.
So surprised.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia supposedly let Israeli planes fly over their territory, but I think they've denied it now.
When they went after the embassy?
When they were flying planes towards Iran during this missile approach.
Oh, to shoot down the.
But I think Saudi Arabia denied it.
Mm-hmm.
But for sure, the Sunnis and the Shiites, I mean, you don't need anything more than every day they kill each other.
Yeah.
So, there's no other religion. There's nobody more argumentative or disagreeable with each other at times, or rambunctious with each other. I don't even know the right word. As Jews are.
That's not true.
But you never heard of a Jew taking out a gun and shooting or killing somebody that he's arguing with or disagreeing with. I think we
are about out of time.
We're out of time.
We haven't.
It's too bad that we always run out of time.
We are taking a hiatus for Passover next week.
Oh, we are?
Yes, because it's
enjoy
holiday.
Your Passover, enjoy your
when
holiday.
We come back, we do have the discussion on anti-Semitism, which we have been trying to get to, but haven't been. But I think we will get there.
What anti-Semitism?
So.
There's very few countries that aren't. The one country that's announced that would move their embassy to Jerusalem and has been supportive of Israel is Argentina. And it turns out that the newly elected president of Argentina, his parents were Jewish. He was brought up Catholic, but
okay.
All right, enough. The Jews are in this world to absorb the punishment for the sins of the rest of the world. The only ones are the ones that are most supportive of Israel, much more than the Jewish population even, are the Christian evangelists and CBN. If you listen to CBN, that's a Christian broadcasting network, which gives favorable coverage to the war and the situation in Iran and the Middle East, and with respect to Israel, and even with the students and some of the leaders of our universities. So I love them. They're fabulous.
Okay, so we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Enjoy your life, enjoy your happiness, and you're in control. So don't suffer the punishments that you induce on yourselves by spending time thinking about the depressing things in your life, the disappointments, the failures, the losses. Just count your blessings and appreciate it. And even the little things like that, your eyes work. If your eyes didn't work, you couldn't get up and see the sun in the morning, the moon at night. You couldn't enjoy nature. And that goes for every part of your fingers if they didn't work. So count those blessings. We take it all for granted till we lose it. God bless you. I love you. Have a fabulous holiday, a fabulous week, and every day of your life should be better than the day before unto eternity. God bless you.